How did you know, as a social psychologist, that this so-called anti-racism training would actually increase racial tension?
Well, I knew, and it's interesting because I told my listeners for my podcast series, and I'm going to tell your audience now, the same tactics I was seeing abusers used to lure in new partners and take over their lives and lead them astray, I was seeing social movements do the same thing. So once you recognize the tactics of not just influence, but manipulation, gaslighting, once you know those, you can apply them anywhere in your life, not just to romantic relationships. And I was seeing the social movements use these same manipulative, even abusive tactics to get their message across.
Like what? Like what, Dina? Can you give us some examples of some of the things that were being done that set off the alarm bells for you?
Well, one of the simplest examples is having protesters go past restaurants where people are sitting outside and eating, and forcing them to do the Black Power salute in order not to be harassed by the protesters. And as a student of history and as a former military brat who went to high school in Germany, I recognize that sort of methodology as something the Nazis used to do. They used to force people to give the Nazi salute. So I looked at that and I thought, having a slogan is not the same as having a policy. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, well, they do. And I also wanted to quickly explain to your British audience why that's such a big deal. In the States, there is sometimes among very biased law enforcement the use of a term NHI whenever Blacks are involved in a crime. And that means no humans involved. And if you study the judicial system, you'll see a lot of disparity between what happens to a white person who commits a crime and what happens to a Black person who commits a crime. So that is where the impetus came for a movement like Black Lives Matter. But they took a slogan and an issue, and everything they did made it worse.
So you're saying everything they did made it worse. Can you give us some examples, please?
Violent protests, having 245 violent protests, often taking place in Black communities. So encouraging people who are frustrated with their lives, first of all, to look outward for the problem. Let's blame it all on the police. Let's burn down City Hall. Let's burn down the stores. Let's loot the stores in our neighborhoods. How in the world is that going to make people less racist? Billions of dollars of damage. How in the world is that going to make people less racist?
It's a good point, Dina. Their counter argument would be, look, we've tried peaceful process before. This hasn't happened. We need to do extreme measures in order for our aims to be, fulfilled.
Yes, but it's the same. You cannot threaten people to accept you. And I have also, as someone who works with relationships, not just abusive ones, but healthy ones too, I've never seen anything work if the effort is only on one side. So now we have a movement that's teaching whites that all of you are racist, all of you are wrong, being white equals being a white supremacist, with no effort expected on the Black community to look at what are we doing that is leading us to these poor results. Is there anything we can do to improve? There's not a lot of emphasis on that. And that is always a problem.